The night was colder than usual, with a thick fog rolling in over the quiet suburban neighborhood. Streetlights flickered, casting eerie shadows along the empty sidewalks. That was when the dog appeared. No one saw where it came from. One moment, the street was empty, the next, it stood there, staring. The stray wasn't like the others. It was large, almost wolf-like, with sleek black fur that seemed too well-groomed for a street dog. Its amber eyes weren't dull or desperate like most strays. They were sharp, focused, almost calculating. The dog didn't beg for food. It didn't sniff through trash or cower from passing cars. Instead, it stood at the edge of the neighborhood, watching. Mrs. Hendricks, an elderly woman who often fed the local strays, noticed the dog first. She placed a bowl of leftovers outside, calling softly, "Come on, boy. You must be hungry." The dog didn't move. It tilted its head slightly, as if considering her offer, but made no effort to approach. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it turned and vanished into the fog. Over the next few days, people in the neighborhood started noticing the stray more often. It never caused trouble, never barked or chased after anything. It simply lingered, always at a distance, always watching. Some people tried to approach it, but the moment they got too close, it would slip away like a shadow. One morning, little Emily Parker spotted the dog from her window. She pressed her tiny hands against the glass, fascinated. "Mommy, look, a wolf." Her mother chuckled. "That's not a wolf, sweetheart, just a big dog." Emily's parents thought nothing of it. Strays came and went all the time. But Emily was different. She watched the dog the way the dog watched the world. She would sit by the window for long stretches, waiting for it to reappear. And it always did. Not every day, not at the same time, but often enough that she began to expect it. One afternoon, Emily got the chance to see the dog up close. She was playing in the front yard when she spotted it standing at the edge of their driveway, staring right at her. "Hi, doggy," she called, giggling. She held out her hand the way she had seen people do on TV. The dog didn't run away this time. It didn't growl or bark. It simply watched her, as if studying every movement she made. Then, in one fluid motion, it turned and disappeared into the trees behind their house. Emily ran inside, excited. "Mommy, the big dog was here. I think he likes me." Her mother smiled and ruffled her hair. "Maybe, sweetheart, but you should never go near strange dogs, okay?" Emily nodded, but in her heart, she knew the dog wasn't dangerous. There was something about him, something different. She didn't understand why, but she felt safe when he was near. She had no idea that soon that dog would save her life. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light over the quiet neighborhood. A gentle breeze rustled the trees, making the leaves dance. It was the perfect afternoon for playing outside, and 6-year-old Emily Parker was doing just that. She ran across the yard, her laughter echoing as she chased butterflies near the back fence. Beyond that fence, a narrow dirt path led to a small river that curved behind their property. It wasn't deep, but after the recent rains, the current had grown stronger. Emily had been told never to go too close, but curiosity often got the better of her. That day was no different. A bright red butterfly fluttered past her, drifting lazily toward the river. Without thinking, Emily followed. She climbed over the loose wooden fence and stepped onto the damp earth of the riverbank. The ground was soft beneath her shoes, but she barely noticed. Her eyes were locked on the butterfly. Then it happened. The earth beneath her shifted. With a sharp crack, the muddy ground gave way, crumbling into the rushing water below. Emily let out a startled scream as she lost her balance. Her arms flailed, but there was nothing to grab onto. And then, something yanked her back. Sharp teeth clamped onto the back of her jacket, pulling her away from the crumbling edge. A powerful force dragged her backward until she collapsed onto solid ground. She gasped, her heart pounding. It was the stray. Shadow stood over her, his massive form blocking her from the river. His amber eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time, Emily noticed something strange. He wasn't panting. Any other dog would have been frantic, barking, or pacing. But Shadow stood still, his body tense, as if he had known exactly what was going to happen. Emily stared up at him, her small hands trembling. You saved me. The dog didn't respond, of course, but he didn't leave either. He stayed by her side, nudging her gently as if making sure she was okay. A voice called from the yard. Emily, where are you? It was her mother. Emily scrambled to her feet, her legs shaky. She turned toward the house, cupping her hands around her mouth. Mommy, over here. Within seconds, her mother appeared, breathless. Her eyes widened as she spotted Emily near the river. What are you doing out there? She asked, rushing over. Before Emily could answer, her mother noticed the dog standing protectively beside her. A mix of fear and gratitude flashed across her face. That's the stray. Emily nodded excitedly. He saved me, Mommy. The ground broke and I almost fell, but he pulled me back. Her mother's expression softened as she crouched down, inspecting her daughter for any injuries. Are you hurt? Emily shook her head. No, but he saved me. For the first time, her mother looked at the dog not with suspicion, but with something else, understanding. She had seen Shadow before, lurking in the neighborhood, always watching, but she had never imagined he would do something like this. Slowly, she extended her hand. Good boy, she said softly. Shadow didn't move. He simply stood there waiting. Then, without warning, he turned and trotted away, disappearing into the trees as silently as he had come. Emily's mother held her daughter close, her mind racing. Why had the dog been there at the exact right moment? How had he known to pull Emily back? Something about Shadow wasn't normal. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if that was a good thing or something to be afraid of. That night, Emily couldn't stop talking about the dog. She sat at the dinner table, eyes bright with excitement. Can we keep him, Mommy? He saved me, she pleaded. Her parents exchanged a glance. Emily's father, David, had been skeptical when he heard the story. A stray dog rescuing a child with such precision. It sounded almost unbelievable, but Emily's mother, Sarah, had seen the way the dog stood there, calm, controlled, almost like he had expected the accident to happen. I don't know, sweetheart, Sarah said carefully. He's still a stray. We don't know where he came from. Emily's face fell, but she didn't argue. Later that night, after Emily had gone to bed, David and Sarah sat in the living room discussing what to do. It's just strange, David said, rubbing his chin. That dog didn't act like a normal stray. He didn't panic. He didn't run around barking. He just pulled her back and stood there. Sarah nodded, and the way he watches people, it's like he understands more than he should. David sighed. Still, he saved Emily. Maybe we should at least give him a chance. The decision was made the next morning when Emily opened the front door and found the dog sitting on the porch. His amber eyes locked onto hers as if he had been waiting. He came back, she squealed. Sarah hesitated. The dog hadn't scratched at the door or barked. He had simply sat there, waiting for them to make a choice. Finally, she let out a breath. All right, but if we keep him, we take him to the vet, and if he has a family, we return him. Emily threw her arms around the dog's thick neck. You're my Shadow now. And just like that, the stray had a name. A guardian in the house. From the moment Shadow stepped inside, it was clear he wasn't like other dogs. He didn't sniff around curiously or run excitedly from room to room. Instead, he walked through the house slowly, as if memorizing every corner. He barely made a sound. When Emily sat on the floor playing with her toys, Shadow lay beside her, always watching. At night, he refused to sleep in the cozy bed they had bought for him. Instead, he stationed himself outside Emily's bedroom door, standing guard. He never whined, never scratched to come in. He just sat there, silent and alert. Sarah woke up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water and nearly jumped when she saw his glowing amber eyes watching from the hallway. You scared me, she whispered. The dog didn't react. He simply kept staring, as if waiting for something. Strange behavior. Over the next few days, the family noticed more unusual things. Shadow didn't beg for food. He ate only when given a meal, never sniffing around the table like most dogs. He never barked, even when a delivery man knocked on the door. And strangest of all, he seemed to recognize people before they even spoke. One afternoon, Sarah's friend Lisa came over. The moment she stepped onto the porch, Shadow's entire body tensed. His ears perked, and he positioned himself between Lisa and the door. "He doesn't like me much, huh?" Lisa laughed nervously. Sarah frowned. "He's never done that before." Lisa was a kind woman, always friendly. So why was Shadow acting as if she was a threat? Sarah brushed it off until the next day when Lisa called with shocking news. Someone had broken into her home the night before. The realization sent chills down Sarah's spine. Had Shadow sensed something was wrong? The more she watched him, the more uneasy she became. He wasn't just a smart dog. He was something else. And she was starting to wonder if bringing him into their home had been a mistake. A week had passed since Shadow became part of the family, but Sarah's unease hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown stronger. Shadow wasn't just intelligent, he was calculating. He moved with purpose, watched people too closely, and reacted to things before they even happened. David dismissed her worries at first. "He's just a smart dog," he said, maybe even trained by someone before he became a stray. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. Then came the final straw, the night of the intruder. It was past midnight when a faint noise woke Sarah. At first, she thought she had imagined it, but then she heard it again, a light rustling sound like someone moving outside. She sat up, her heart pounding. Shadow, who had been lying outside Emily's door, suddenly stiffened. His ears perked, and his body went rigid. A low, guttural growl rumbled from his throat, deep, dangerous, unlike anything they had heard from him before. David woke up. "What's wrong?" Shadow suddenly bolted toward the back door. Without hesitation, he leaped up and hit the handle with his paw, forcing it open. Sarah barely had time to register what was happening before a scream echoed from the backyard. A man, dressed in dark clothing, was running toward the fence, clutching his arm where Shadow had bitten him. He scrambled over the wooden boards and vanished into the night. David ran outside, but the intruder was already gone. Shadow stood in the yard, staring after him, every muscle in his body tense. When they checked the back door, they found the lock had been tampered with. Someone had been trying to break in. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Shadow had known. The DNA test. The next morning, Sarah made a decision. If Shadow was going to be part of their family, they needed to know what he was. She ordered a canine DNA test online. It was a simple kit. Swab the dog's mouth, send it in, and wait for the results. Emily giggled as she helped, rubbing the swab along Shadow's gums. "What do you think he is, Mommy? A wolf?" Sarah smiled, but deep down she wasn't sure. The call that changed everything. 2 weeks later, the results came in. But instead of an email with the usual breakdown of breeds, Sarah received a phone call. "Mrs. Parker," a man's voice said, "this is Dr. Mitchell from GenPet Labs. We processed your dog's DNA test." Sarah frowned. "Yes." There was a pause online. Then, in a lower voice, the man asked, "Where did you get this animal?" A chill ran through her. "He was a stray." "Why?" Another silence. Then, "Mrs. Parker, this isn't a normal dog. His DNA doesn't match any known domestic breed. In fact, some of his genetic markers don't exist in any registered species." Sarah gripped the phone tighter. "What does that mean?" The man hesitated, then said something that made her blood run cold. "This animal was never meant to be found." And then, just before the call abruptly disconnected, he left her with one final warning. "You need to be very careful, because someone will come looking for him." Sarah stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear long after the call had ended. Her heart pounded as Dr. Mitchell's last words echoed in her mind. This animal was never meant to be found. A chill crawled up her spine. What did that even mean? Was Shadow part of some experiment? A lost military project? And if so, who would come looking for him? She turned toward the living room, where Emily sat on the floor, giggling as Shadow rested his head in her lap. The massive dog looked at peace, his amber eyes half closed. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their peace wouldn't last much longer. The black car. That evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, a sleek black car rolled down the street. It moved slowly, almost too slowly, its dark windows making it impossible to see inside. Sarah watched from the window, her pulse quickening. The car didn't stop in front of their house, but it didn't need to. It passed by once, then again. Shadow, who had been lying near Emily, suddenly lifted his head. His ears perked up, his body going rigid. He stared at the car through the window, and for the first time since they had taken him in, Sarah saw something in his eyes. Recognition. Whoever was in that car, Shadow knew them. Or at least, he knew what they were. The man in the suit. The next morning, just as Sarah was pouring coffee, the doorbell rang. David, still half asleep, muttered, "Who would come this early?" Sarah didn't answer. She already had a bad feeling. When she opened the door, a tall man in a black suit stood on their porch. He had short, neatly combed hair, a perfectly pressed shirt, and a cold, expressionless face. "Mrs. Parker," he said smoothly. She hesitated. "Yes. My name is Mr. Cole. I work with a specialized retrieval team," he said. "I believe you have something that belongs to us." Sarah's grip tightened on the door. "I don't know what you're talking about." The man's lips curled into a polite but humorless smile. "The animal. Shadow, as you call him." His gaze flickered past her, toward the living room where Shadow lay. "He's not yours." Sarah's heart pounded. "He's a stray." Mr. Cole tilted his head slightly. "No, Mrs. Parker, he isn't." Shadow stood up then, stepping forward until he was just behind Sarah. His fur bristled, his muscles tense. He didn't growl. He didn't bare his teeth. He just stood there, silent and unmoving. But his presence alone was enough. For the first time, Mr. Cole's confident expression flickered. He took a small step back, adjusting his tie. "You don't understand what you have," he said carefully. "That dog is part of something much bigger. And trust me, you don't want to be caught in the middle of it." Sarah swallowed hard. If he's so important, why was he out there alone? Mr. Cole's jaw tightened. Because he escaped. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Escaped from what? Before she could ask, he reached into his pocket and handed her a small white card. No company name. No title. Just a phone number. "When you're ready to do the right thing," he said, "call this number." Then he turned, walked to his car, and drove away. Sarah stared down at the card, her hands shaking. Shadow pressed his head against her leg, as if sensing her fear. She looked down at him. Who or what was he really? Sarah sat at the kitchen table, staring at the small white card Mr. Cole had given her. The phone number printed on it seemed harmless enough, but she knew better. This wasn't some lost dog hotline. Whoever these people were, they wanted Shadow back. But why? She glanced toward the living room, where Emily was curled up beside Shadow, her tiny fingers absent-mindedly running through his thick fur. The dog lay still, his amber eyes open, watching, always watching. Sarah took a deep breath. She needed answers. Digging for the truth. That night, after Emily was asleep and David was busy in the garage, Sarah powered on her laptop. She typed the name GenPet Labs into the search bar, but the results were disappointing. A few vague mentions of genetic research, but nothing about dogs. Then she searched for missing military animals. Again, nothing useful. Frustrated, she decided to try something different. She typed classified animal experiments into the search bar and hit enter. The results made her breath hitch. One particular article stood out, an old news piece from over a decade ago. The headline read, "Project Sentinel, the canine experiment that never should have happened." Sarah clicked on it, her pulse racing. The article described a secret program designed to create the perfect companion for military and intelligence operations. Dogs with enhanced intelligence, near-human comprehension, and heightened survival instincts. They were supposed to be faster, stronger, and smarter than any normal canine. But the project was shut down under mysterious circumstances. Some claimed the dogs had become too unpredictable. Others whispered about missing test subjects, animals that had vanished before the program was officially dismantled. Sarah's hands trembled. Shadow fit the description exactly. Her gaze darted to him, lying silently on the floor. Was he one of them? And if so, had he escaped? Or was he hiding? A sudden realization, Sarah leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed. Everything about Shadow, the way he never barked, the way he seemed to anticipate danger, the way he understood things a normal dog shouldn't, it all made sense now. He wasn't just a stray. He wasn't even just a trained dog. He was something more. Then a terrifying thought struck her. Mr. Cole and his people hadn't just found out where Shadow was. They had been watching, waiting. If Shadow had been running from them all this time, then they weren't going to just ask for him back. The plan to take him. A noise outside made Sarah jump. She rushed to the window and peeked through the curtains. The black car was back. It sat parked a few houses down, its engine running silently. She felt her throat tighten. They weren't leaving. Sarah's mind raced. They wouldn't come in guns blazing. That wasn't their style. No, they'd wait. They'd watch for an opportunity. Maybe they'd follow Emily to school. Maybe they'd wait until the family left for the grocery store. Maybe they'd break in when they were all asleep. But one way or another, they were going to take Shadow. And this time, he might not come back. Sarah clenched her fists. No, they weren't going to take him, not without a fight. Shadow had saved Emily's life. He had protected their home. Now it was her turn to protect him. Sarah's mind raced. She knew one thing for certain. If they stayed, Shadow would be taken. Mr. Cole and his people weren't just going to wait for her to call that number. They were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. She wouldn't give them the chance. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her phone and dialed David's number. He was still in the garage, tinkering with an old car. "Hey," he answered. "What's up?" Sarah kept her voice low. "We need to leave. Tonight." There was a pause. "What? Why?" "They're outside, watching us," she whispered. "That man, Mr. Cole, he wasn't just warning us. He was buying time. They're waiting for the right moment to take Shadow." David sighed. "Sarah, you're panicking. They wouldn't just." A soft click echoed from the front door, the sound of a lock being tested. Sarah's blood ran cold. "They're here," she whispered. David cursed. "Get Emily. I'll grab my keys." Sarah rushed to Emily's room, careful not to make a sound. The little girl was fast asleep, curled up in her blankets. "Sweetheart, wake up," Sarah whispered urgently, shaking her gently. Emily groaned. "Mommy." "We have to go, baby," she said. "Right now." Shadow was already awake, standing by the door. His ears twitched, his body tense. He knew something was wrong. Sarah scooped Emily into her arms just as the sound of footsteps echoed outside. Someone was moving along the side of the house. She ran to the back door where David was waiting. He had his keys in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. "We take the back roads," he said, already opening the door. "They'll expect us to go through the main street." Sarah nodded, clutching Emily close. "Let's go." A race against time. They ran to the car, Shadow following silently. As soon as David started the engine, the black car down the street roared to life. "They're following?" Sarah said, her heart pounding. David floored the gas pedal, speeding down the darkened road. The black car kept pace, its headlights glaring in the rearview mirror. Emily whimpered, burying her face in Sarah's shoulder. "Mommy, I'm scared." Sarah kissed her forehead. "It's okay, baby. We're going somewhere safe." "But where?" David swerved onto a side street, trying to lose them. Shadow sat in the back seat, his body unnaturally still, his golden eyes locked on the pursuing car. Then, for the first time, he made a sound. A deep, low growl rumbled from his chest, one so powerful it sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. She glanced back just as something strange happened. The black car's headlights flickered. Then suddenly, its engine sputtered. The car jerked, slowed, then skidded to a halt on the side of the road. David's eyes widened. "What the?" Sarah turned to Shadow. He was still staring at the car. His ears were back, his body tense. Had he done that? No, that wasn't possible. Was it? Nowhere left to run. They didn't stop to find out. David drove until they reached the outskirts of town, pulling into a secluded motel. "We stay here tonight," he said. "Figure out our next move in the morning." Sarah nodded, but she knew the truth. They weren't safe. Not yet. And soon Mr. Cole would come looking again. The motel room was small and dimly lit, but for now, it was their only safe haven. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, holding Emily close, while David peeked out the window, scanning the dark parking lot for any sign of pursuit. Shadow lay near the door, his ears twitching at every small sound. He was waiting, just like he always did, watching, anticipating. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. And she was right. The return of Mr. Cole. A little after midnight, a car engine rumbled in the distance. Sarah tensed. David cursed under his breath. "They found us." A sleek black SUV pulled into the parking lot, the same car from before. This time, it didn't hesitate. It rolled to a stop right in front of their room. Sarah's heart pounded. A single figure stepped out, Mr. Cole. He wasn't alone this time. Two other men, both dressed in black, flanked him. They moved with military precision, their faces unreadable. Sarah tightened her grip on Emily. A sharp knock rattled the door. "Mrs. Parker," Mr. Cole's voice came through, calm and composed. "There's no need to run. We just want the animal." Shadow lifted his head, his amber eyes glowing in the dim light. David clenched his jaw. "We're not giving him up." There was a pause. Then, "That's unfortunate." A second later, something clicked outside, the unmistakable sound of a lock being tampered with. David grabbed the baseball bat. Sarah clutched Emily tighter. Then Shadow stood up. Shadow's true nature. The air in the room changed. The dog's muscles tensed, his fur bristling. His usually calm, steady presence shifted into something else, something dangerous. For the first time since they had taken him in, Shadow bared his teeth. A low, guttural growl filled the room, vibrating through the walls. Then, before Sarah could even react, Shadow moved. A blur of black fur and raw power, he lunged at the door just as it burst open. The first man barely had time to react before Shadow was on him, knocking him to the ground with unnatural speed. Mr. Cole took a step back, eyes widening. "Stop him," he ordered. The second man reached for something under his jacket, but Shadow was faster. He dodged to the side, his massive jaws snapping onto the man's wrist. A scream echoed through the motel room as the gun clattered to the floor. David lunged for it, grabbing the weapon before Mr. Cole could react. "Get out," David growled, aiming the gun directly at him. Mr. Cole's expression darkened. He looked at Shadow, who stood between him and the family, his teeth still bared. For the first time, the man seemed uncertain. He exhaled slowly. "You don't know what you're protecting." David didn't lower the gun. "Maybe not, but I do know he saved my daughter's life, and I trust him over you any day." Mr. Cole studied them for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he took a step back. He motioned to his men. "Fall back," he ordered. The injured man staggered up, clutching his arm. The other hesitated, glaring at Shadow before following. Mr. Cole paused at the doorway. "This isn't over," he warned. "You'll never be able to hide him forever." Shadow growled again, and this time Mr. Cole took the hint. Without another word, he turned and walked away. The SUV's headlights flickered on, and within moments, they were gone. A new beginning. Silence filled the room. Sarah let out a shaky breath, her heart still racing. She turned to Shadow, who was already back to his usual calm self, standing protectively near Emily. David lowered the gun. "What now?" he asked. Sarah looked down at Shadow. They could never go back to their old lives. Not now. Not after this. But one thing was clear. Shadow wasn't just a stray. He wasn't even just an experiment. He was family. And no matter what came next, they would protect him, just like he had protected them. Sarah gave Shadow a small smile, and scratched behind his ears. "Let's go home,"